This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love to work alone. Hello there, everybody. I'm Franklin Taggart, and this is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love working alone. And I am one of you, and you are one of me, and one is all we need, isn't it now? Okay, so we're getting into some fun stuff today, and I think you're really going to enjoy meeting Perry Knoppert. Perry is the originator and founder of something called the Octopus Movement, which is something we're going to be learning about in detail here in a little while. But he's also... I'm going to use a word here, Perry, that we haven't really talked about, but I'm going to use the word that you're an explorer of nonlinear thinking. And you're trying to see, I don't know that there are any limits to nonlinear thinking, and that's kind of beside the point, isn't it? But I think that you're testing and you're trying to find as many different ways that you can take your thinking. Would that be accurate?
Very accurate. And explore without boundaries, without thinking. That's a weird one, maybe, but just see if it can just flow. And even if it doesn't make any sense, then you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? And then thinking, oh no, this is nonlinear thinking. Keep going, because it will eventually bring me somewhere that is going to be awesome.
I like that concept of thinking without thinking.
Yeah.
And that actually feels very akin to what we experience in those deep flow states that we enter into when we're going really creative, or when we're getting into a thing where when our thinking quiets down. There's a thinking that happens that's not thinking. It's a very cool thing. Talk to me a little bit about how you got interested in this stuff.
Maybe because I'm a weirdo. Maybe I've always been weird my entire life, and oh my God, did I try to fit in? Did I try to deliver according all the expectations I had as well? But based on the expectations of others, my parents, awesome parents, nothing wrong with them, really, really cool parents, my ex-wife, my friends, and everybody around me expected me to do something. And it's of course the opposite of nonlinear thinking. It's very linear to have expectations. And I remember so well that my sister is 5 years older than me, and she's an artist, she's a painter, and she creates beautiful things. And I wanted to be an artist as well, but my parents were saying, no, you're not an artist, you're an entrepreneur. You should be working with people, you should be in sales. And my father is an entrepreneur, so obviously, business economics, how boring is that? And I wanted to be an entrepreneur because that was what was expected of me,
right?
But I want to be an artist. How cool is it to be? I'm an artist now. And the cool thing about an artist is it's very nonlinear, because there's no definition of art. There is no definition. I read a book about the philosophy of the word art, and trying to get behind the definition of art, which is impossible. And there's one example that there is this gallery owner that dropped his reading glasses on the floor, and he came back in that room with all the art, and there was a group of people around his glasses on the floor, and they were saying, oh yeah, it's beautiful. Right? What is art? How cool is it to be an artist, that you can say, Perry, what do you do? I'm an artist. I just love that. And my parents used to say to me, no, you're not an artist. And I wanted to go to the arts academy, and I didn't, because there was focus on something else. So until the age of 45, I failed, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur for me was this jigsaw puzzle that I created. Like, an entrepreneur looks like this. He's very successful. He's very rich. Has a Mercedes-Benz and a swimming pool. And This is ridiculous, of course, but I was trying to fulfill that picture,
Yeah.
and I almost succeeded. And then at some point, lots of things came together, and I lost everything, and I became homeless, and my whole jigsaw puzzle just vanished, and everything was gone. And I was thinking, no, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And this for me, and I'm not that big of a rebel. Maybe people will think, no, oh God, that's a real rebel. But for me, the outside world is a linear world where
Yeah.
we go to school and we need to have our grades and our diploma, and then we get a good job, and then we get a spouse and 2.5 kids and a golden retriever.
Yeah.
So flipping linear. And if it works, then it's fine. But if it doesn't work, then people that are capable and able of living that life will look at you like, what are you doing? I can't
Yeah.
follow. I don't understand you. And you're not successful. If
Yeah.
I get an article in Forbes, I've been quoted in an article in Forbes. Ooh. But then something happens. People
Yeah.
take you seriously, right? Ooh, wow. And that's so the opposite of art.
Yeah.
Like, but what is this? So someone quote me in an article that in a magazine that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And now you're fine. Now you're
As seen in
successful.
Forbes.
And what is this? And
Yeah.
I had the same experience. I lived in Beijing in China. And when I came into China, I was sitting next to my driver. We were an expat family, and we got a driver because you cannot drive yourself in China. You have to
Yeah.
have a Chinese driving license. Really cool. Anyway, I was next to my driver, and I said to him, if I want to learn Chinese and the culture of China as fast as possible, which is a ridiculous question, but okay, um, how do I do that? And he was laughing at me, and he was not giving me any answers because it's a stupid question. How can you learn the culture of China fast? It's anyway.
Yeah.
And I saw all these taxis, and I said to him, if I become a taxi driver, then I have to learn Chinese fast. I have to know the way in China, in Beijing, and I have to talk with all kinds of people, Chinese people. So then I will learn fast. And the driver was laughing, and he was saying, yeah, Perry, that's impossible. You are a Lawai, a foreigner. You don't get a working permit to become a taxi driver. A taxi drivers, farmers from the rural areas in China, not expats. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Perry,
I
I have a question for you about,
Yeah.
if I remember right, the things that you categorized as what other people might term as failures have happened fairly recently for you. I mean, they've happened within the last few years, right?
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I'd be really curious about is, when did you start to make the connection that there was a big difference in the way that you thought compared to other people?
I started interviewing people who call themselves multipotentialite.
Yeah.
And that triggered me. I saw a TED talk of Emily Wapnick on TED Talk, and I thought, oh, that's fascinating. Multipotentialites, people with multiple passions,
Yeah.
capability of learning very fast, creating new insights, connecting the dots. Well, that sounds a bit like me.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I started interviewing people, finding them on LinkedIn, because you can do a search on multipotentialite. And you get all these people from all over the world that use that in with their name.
Yeah.
And I started interviewing them, and I saw and I noticed that all of them have neurodiversity. And I
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
that's cool. So they're wired differently, and because of their brain wired in a different way, their outcome is multipotentiality. How does that work? Why is that? And I went to Philips, a Dutch organization that creates MRI machines, and I said to them, "Can I have an MRI machine?" And they looked at me like, "Yeah, that's a weird question." But they asked me, why do you want to have an MRI machine? And I ended up talking to the head of design of Philips, and we had coffee many times. And in the end, he introduced me to their research team and to do research on the brain, what it means to be wired differently, and why there is the outcome of multipotentiality. So we couldn't answer these questions because there's not enough research on that field. But that's the period of where I discovered, oh, it makes sense that people don't understand me.
Yeah.
And it isn't me. So this is the most important discovery. There's nothing wrong with me, and there's everything wrong with me.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad thing. So if I used to write with my dyslexia and my brain in ADHD mode, I would create sentences that people, what the hell is this dude doing? Why does he think we understand exactly what he means in only 2 sentences?
Yeah.
But why? And I always thought that I was stupid, that I was not clever enough, that I didn't have enough brain cells in order to just do what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
And it took me 45 flipping years to discover that there's nothing wrong with me. Actually, it's very cool to be different and to have a different wired brain. And now I write all the time. And if I make a mistake, then that's the living proof of my dyslexia.
Yeah.
And good luck with it. So in the beginning, people were in the movement saying, "Perry, you made a typo, a writing error." And it's like, do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. Forget about my typos. It's not important. How linear, right?
No kidding, right?
How linear to be focusing on that. I know I made a mistake. I can't see it. It's the same thing when you're colorblind and that someone says you use the wrong color Post-its on your mood board. Like, what the I can't see. Who cares? I can't see it. What are you expecting from me?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm so lost with my dyslexia that I want to write a word, and I know it's there, but I can't write. I can't connect the letters together. I can't. And I go to Google and I type in something and then pray to God that Google understands what the hell I'm talking about. And then Google corrects my word and I'm like, oh, that's it. Because sometimes it's so weird that my spelling check is also lost.
Yeah.
What is this? That's the moment where I thought, yes, I'm wired differently. That's why I have 20 new ideas a day if I just let it flow. This is why I have more energy than others, that I can keep going. Doesn't matter to me. Where I was always amazed, why do they stop? Why do they have to sit down? Why? What is this?
Yeah. I'm curious about how did your perception of failure change with that realization?
Big time. Huge. I did 2 things. I lost everything and I did a hard reset. So I also said to myself, I want to create a global movement after a few discoveries. And I'm going to do it by myself, just me, and no funding, no money whatsoever.
Yeah.
I want to prove that it's possible to do things in a different way. Forget about what you've learned at university in all the steps and all the methods, and you have to write a business plan, then you get some money, and then you get investors, and then you create a prototype. I wasn't doing all of that. I was I just let it flow. So failure became totally different. Failure, if I create something now and it doesn't work, that's just, and it's a cliche if I say it like that, but it's actually true. if I create something that doesn't work, then that's just something that doesn't work right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like failure because it allows me to connect other points together where I discover new possibilities.
Yeah.
So failure almost doesn't exist anymore. And when you lose everything, which is, by the way, for me, complete freedom. If you don't have any, the most difficult part, I have 3 kids. I couldn't see my 3 kids in these 7 months I was homeless
Yeah.
because my ex-wife, she was really mad at me. I go, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
But when there's nothing, everything is all of a sudden possible. And I find it so difficult to express that feeling where when you do, and that's why I love the title of your show, when you do things yourself and you don't have to wait for anyone else, and you just let your mind open up for everything and nothing is holding you back, then there is no failure, basically. And of course, I've been stressed when I did the first Zoom session in the movement, and I thought, oh, maybe nobody shows up.
Yeah.
Then it's failure. But then, no, because then this is the wrong communication. And then someone does show up, and then something happens again. And then only 3 people showed up. I remember so well when I started the founding members of the movement. I started with 2 founding members. Those are people that make one-time donation because I don't believe in recurring revenue. Of course, I'm going against everything. You make a donation one time for the movement, it's $200, and that's a membership for life. And then you're a founding member and you can join our monthly sessions. And I started with only 2 founding members, and we would meet every month. It was a bit pathetic in the beginning, right? And now we have the founding members too.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And it didn't feel like failure because we were together exploring what is this and where are we going. And now we have over 40 founding members in a year time. And it's one big celebration of nonlinear thinking with people all over the world when we come together.
Yeah. So I think it's important to highlight then that I think that you have a different view of money, but money is still a part of the equation. It's just not as large a part of the equation as in other entrepreneurial ventures. Would that be accurate?
I think it's fuel. I'm in contact with an investment company in California, and they're supporting the Octopus Movement. And the owner, Mark McNeely, he said, money is like fuel.
Yeah.
And he said, you build a car with an engine, with everything in it. And he said, I've seen many companies that looks very shiny, but then you look inside of the car and there's no engine.
They don't move.
They don't move. Nothing is happening. You build something with everything in it, with a badass engine and even a little bit of fuel. And now what happens if we fill up the tank?
Yeah.
Then, wow. So money is still very important, but it's creating something doesn't start with fuel. It starts with other things. And for me, that was an awakening. And of course, I know I can do more if I have a larger budget, and we're getting there. And there's a lot of movement in that area as well. But also in a personal life, I used to be living in Brussels, and every other week we would go to Paris or London and see the art exhibitions and a lot of tralala and nice wines and beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it really about that? It's fuel. It's nice.
Yeah. Well, it's there's more of an emphasis on the experience rather than on the money. And it's like you're driven by something different than profit.
Exactly. And now I'm very proud to say that we're launching the for-profit company.
Yeah.
And it's owned by the non-profit company.
Okay.
And I just love that. We have a for-profit where the profit goes into the non-profit. And the nonprofit is the global movement that is available for everyone. And
So let's talk about the movement. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a fairly new movement. You've just started it in the last little while, the last couple of years, right?
1.5 year. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about what is the vision for the Octopus Movement?
Why did we do this? After interviewing so many people that were different and didn't fit into the box, I was thinking, I was with a group of people like that, and they called themselves multipotentialites, but I had difficulty with the word multipotentialite
Yeah.
because for me it was too linear again. Because if you say to a polymath that he or she is a multipotentialite, then they're offended
Yeah.
because they have a different opinion about their values and what is important and whatnot. And I thought, but that's not what it's about. It's it's something else. And I asked a group of people and I said, what is the symbol of a curious misfit? Because that's what we all have in common. We're
Yeah.
all curious misfits. We're not in the box and we want to know so many things.
Yeah.
And we do things differently. And then someone said, oh, I always use the octopus as an emoji to send that to people if I had a nice conversation. I said, oh wow, why do you do that? Was my question. And she said, well, maybe because I'm Greek, I just love the octopus. I said,
Yeah.
okay. And then someone in South Africa said, have you seen My Octopus Teacher, a documentary about a filmmaker that gets into a friendship with a real octopus? And I
Yeah.
watched that the same evening, and that's the start of the Octopus Movement. I saw that documentary and I thought, this is what I need to do. I need to create the awareness of the awesomeness of atypical thinkers, nonlinear thinkers,
Yeah.
because they can make a difference.
Well,
They can
they
clean
always
up the
have.
mess. Always have, and they can clean up the mess of linear thinkers.
Yeah.
But the problem is, to be heard and to be accepted as a nonlinear thinker, you have to have a linear track record. Otherwise, forget it.
Yeah.
You need to be in Forbes in order to be heard and seen. You need to check the boxes.
Yeah.
Like, I've been to Harvard, been in Forbes. I've sold my company for 20 million. That always helps as well, right? And oh, now we're listening to him.
Yeah.
But there is this huge group in the world that are beautiful minds that they're not ticking the boxes
Yeah.
because not everybody can be in Forbes and sell their company for 20 million.
Yeah.
So what do we do with this group of people that are having a feeling of not being seen and heard? And they all said to me when I was interviewing them, they all had that in common, being a curious misfit and saying, if only people would really see me and understand me, I would have so much more possibilities in life. I could do so much more than I'm doing right now. And
Yeah.
I've been there when I was homeless and I came back to the Netherlands and I applied for more than 70 jobs. Nobody interviewed me. Nobody invited me for a conversation. Why? Because my resume is like shit.
I
It
always talked
goes
about my resume being a nightmare,
it,
an HR nightmare.
exactly. We don't fit in the HR software, where they can give you a rating like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's a waste not to do anything with these people. And then, moreover, I'm thinking about education and I'm thinking about my own journey at school of being misunderstood,
Yeah.
of having dyslexia and ADHD, and having the feeling when I was done with school that I was not good enough. And now, 45, I'm discovering I am good enough.
Yeah.
And my IQ levels are pretty high even. And so many people in the movement are highly gifted. And they had no idea until their kids are being tested. And then they discovered, oh, but I have that as well. And
Yeah.
then they discover a very high IQ and they're thinking, but why was it so difficult for me at school then? Because you don't fit in these lines of the educational system. So that's
Yeah.
something we're also very much focused on with the Octopus Movement, to take care of the people that are nonlinear thinkers, but also to talk with students and kids about nonlinear thinking. And I teach at schools as well. And I ask, for instance, a group of 9-year-olds, what do you want to do when you grow up? And then these little arms go up, and I want to tell. And then I want to be a vet or a dancer or an artist.
Yeah.
And then I say to that child, but you can do all three of them
Yeah. Why
together.
just do one?
Huh? And then a 9-year-old, Franklin, says to me, no, that's not true. You cannot
Yeah.
do all three. And it makes me always very happy when they say that. And I start laughing. I said, I'm 46. I travel the world, have done everything. And you 9-year-olds are telling me that this is not true. But these kids are being conditioned in the linear way of thinking.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not against that, but they also should know that there's also something else. And if you're not good in math, it doesn't mean you're bad in math. It just
Yeah.
means maybe it's not in line in how you think. And maybe if at some point other things come together, you explore all of a sudden that you're very good in math. And the
Yeah.
people that I've spoken with in the movement that are famous poets, where their English professor used to say to them, John, forget it. This is
Yeah.
never going to work. And now John is selling books all over the world, right?
Yeah. There are a couple of things that are coming up. I mean, the thing that's really interesting to me is that we could take this conversation in probably 100 different directions, and they would all be interesting. But the things that are really starting to pop up for me here as we're talking are the different ways that institutions tend to attract people who are alike. And they don't integrate people who think differently very easily or very well. And I wonder, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking as you were talking was that you just described probably 80%, if not more, of the people that I work with who are solopreneurs and freelancers. And a big reason that a lot of them are in the self-employment, solopreneur, freelancer direction is because they don't fit in normal institution-based businesses that that work with linear structures, linear processes, and linear thinking. And one of the things that I'm curious about is, like, what ideas do you have for integrating nonlinear thinkers in linear thinking organizations?
Mm-hmm. First thing is that I understand big organizations, because
Yeah.
if you need to manage a lot of people and they're all nonlinear thinkers,
Yeah.
then oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Herding cats, as they say.
Oh, that's difficult to manage. So the managers are hiring people that fit in the box. And then
Yeah.
these people in the box become managers, and then it stays, right? And it goes in circles. And the CEO or the founder, or that's a nonlinear thinker. That's
Right.
someone with a vision. So that's the system how it works. But the problem I see is we're destroying the planet. We're not taking very good care of the planet
Yeah.
and humanity. And I think that's a direct result of linear thinking. The linear thinking is shareholders' value. We need to increase, needs to be more money, and
Yeah.
then whatever it takes, we need to go there. We need to follow that line. So how awesome would it be that HR, that's the start, that HR starts to understand what linear and nonlinear thinking is,
Yeah.
that the head of innovation is a nonlinear thinker. Most of the time, it's not,
Yeah.
because that's the same manager that needs to be controlled by another manager that is just climbed the ladder in the organization, who is rather creative. So that's the innovation manager.
Yeah.
How cool would it be for HR to understand that you should address that in a different way? That maybe your innovation manager isn't someone with a track record of 30 years of innovation and whatever Ivy League, but maybe it's a nonlinear thinker
Yeah.
that is able to create real and awesome innovation for that company. So it starts with HR, and then we need to go to a system where now it's easy to express yourself as an introvert or an extrovert.
Yeah.
If I go to a party and someone is standing there in the corner with a cup and all by himself, and I say, "Hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay?" I'm an introvert, dude. I love this. Oh, cool. Shake hands, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Let's do that as well with linear, nonlinear thinking. If I put on top of my resume Perry Knoppert, nonlinear thinker, and then my resume, which has everything, then all of a sudden my resume has a value.
Yeah.
Now, without nonlinear thinking, my resume is a mess, and they don't understand.
Well, that's the thing that I was going to ask is like another reality for nonlinear thinkers is very often staying in one position for a very long time doesn't work for us.
No.
As I look at the places that I've worked over the years, I think the longest that I worked in any one job was around 6 years, with the exception of music. And music was the career path that I had chosen for myself. But even then, I was only full time in music for about 8 years before life interrupted. But the thing that's really interesting to me is that the nonlinear thinking folks, the neurodivergent folks, and the people who are working with these different styles of learning, these different styles of communicating, and these different styles of thinking, very often they don't fit into the standard structure and set of expectations that corporations require. And so I'm wondering how corporations have to change in order to adapt to include folks in that category, because they do need the gifts, they need the skills, but they still haven't found, I think the closest thing that we can come to is Apple in the early days when they had the pirate ship out in the middle of the complex where all of the creative people went and they were sequestered. It's like they had their own space, with the ping pong tables and all of the games and stuff like that. And then the more linear stuff was happening in the outer circle, of the structure of the building. And it was interesting because they kept those guys separate from the rest of the company, but they gave them a place within the company. You know what I'm saying? And I think to me, that's the only, real well-known example of how people have integrated that creative, and I don't even want to think out of the box. I want to think different thinkers, right?
Yeah, because out of the box thinking is very linear. Can you imagine?
Oh yeah, right.
Then
Just building a bigger box.
on Friday afternoon, we're doing a brainstorming session. We're
Yeah.
going to think outside of the box. Are you on time at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? It cracks me up.
And be sure to wear your blue jeans.
Exactly. And now we're going to think outside of the box and let's use our Post-its. Yeah, it's hilarious. No, I think the solution it is the opposite of Apple, I think.
Yeah.
If you look at the startups nowadays, those are nonlinear companies. They don't care about where you're coming from, what you're wearing, what you're doing. Do the job and do the job even better than expected. And whatever it takes, doesn't matter how you look, and that becomes more linear as well. So you have to look arty in a specific way so they could see like the expectations of the nonlinear thinker, which is already too linear for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's not that difficult. If you look at organizations, I recently did a speech at ABN AMRO. It's a Dutch bank about neurodiversity and nonlinear thinking, and they told me that, Perry, we do hire people with autism. I said, wow, cool. And how does that go?
Yeah.
And it doesn't go very well because they leave
Yeah.
immediately, a half a year, and they're gone. And said, why is that? Well, not because of the organization. They allow those are their words, not my word. They allow them to work with them because, oh my God, these people with autism, they in finance, they can focus, and they are really into the numbers. So cool. But then you have their colleagues who, together in the culture of the organization, have created a set of unwritten rules where the nonlinear thinker or people with autism or whatever you want to see it, or neurodivergent people.
Yeah.
What unwritten rules? What are you talking about? And then they leave because they cannot mix with linear thinkers. So Apple is a great example. If ABN AMRO really does a cool job, then create a new office and call that the nonlinear part of the bank,
Yeah.
and put the nonlinear thinkers in there, and create that rock and roll state-of-the-art financial hub
Yeah.
where all the problems are being solved, where new ideas are being generated, where cool shit is happening, and then let the linear branch just do the accounting and the controlling of all the numbers.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult,
No.
right?
Very interesting. The other question that I have is that this is more about the octopus movement. And that is that people who are nonlinear and maybe consider themselves, as you mentioned, they consider themselves weird. I know that one of the things that's very interesting is that they do find communities with each other. But those communities are different from any other that I've ever been a part of. And so the communities that I'm thinking of are the people who do like cosplay and go to Comic-Con, and they find each other through gaming and role play games and stuff like that. A lot of the folks that I've met in those communities would classify themselves as nonlinear thinkers. A lot of them would identify or have been diagnosed on one spectrum or another. And it's interesting to me, though, that they shy away from official membership. And so one of the things that I'm curious about is, how do you let them know that the Octopus Movement is different?
Sometimes in interviews, people are saying to me, "Oh, how cool that you're creating a global community."
Yeah.
And I always get nervous when people say that, and itchy.
Yeah.
It's not a community. It's not. And I don't know why I have so much difficulty with the word community.
Isn't it weird?
It's weird, right? It really annoys the hell out of me, because I think it's too boxed again,
Yeah.
the word community. Because for me, the feeling of a community is that you strive towards a huge group of people connected with each other.
Yeah.
And with the Octopus Movement, that's not what I want to do. I want to create a movement. I don't want to create a community, because then it stops when you have your group of people. However, whatever number or how large it is, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a community and it stops. I saw a documentary of Paul Stamets about fungi.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is it. This is it for me. It's a mycelium.
Yeah.
For me, the group of people in the movement is the mycelium. And we're growing every day. Every day someone is joining somewhere on the planet.
Yeah.
Connected with someone else. And the whole Octopus Movement is growing organically. Everything we're doing is organically. There are no rules.
Yeah.
Boy, do I hate communities with rules. And do I hate communities where you need to pay for it, or when there is a commission to enter a community. Octopus Movement is open, join for free, come in. And it organizes itself in a organic way, just like nature.
Yeah.
And I see now that we have around 2,500 people in, I think, 60 countries now.
Yeah.
And it works like that. So we're taking care of each other without saying we're taking care of each other.
Yeah.
I always like things when they're not explicit. Thinking without thinking, taking care of each other without taking care of each other. We're connected in a way, and just things are happening and moving, and we can't control we can't steer, and it's just happening and building on top. And so in the beginning, of course, I had still the linear mindset of, oh, I want to grow. I was checking on how many members are there and how is it growing. I still do that. Still want to know the numbers.
Yeah.
But I'm not busy anymore with how can I grow. It grows. And how it grows, I don't care. And I love it when someone connects with me and books an appointment with me. And I use Pick My Brain for that, so people can just book me for 30 minutes on Zoom. Let's have a chat. I always ask, where are you coming from? Why did this happen? And then, I was in yoga class last week, and someone next to me said, oh, and he saw something on my bag with an octopus and said, oh, have you heard about the Octopus Movement? No, go check it out. Let it grow organically. And everybody in the group, I have nerds, I have weirdos, I have artists, I have successful professors, I have award-winning producers, I have homeless, I have everyone is there. Not only the gamers or only the musicians.
Right.
But boy, are there a lot of gamers and musicians. But are there also professors working at huge universities in teaching leadership and recognize themselves in the octopus?
Well, one of the things that brings up an interesting point. It's like, I think some of the most nonlinear thinkers that I've ever met are people who are natural leaders, and they find themselves in leadership roles. And what's really interesting is that they have to think differently than anyone else in their organization. And very often they're the ones that are the visionaries. They're the ones that are the ideators. And they have to pass off the more structured and linear types of tasks to other people. But they're the ones that are actually kind of the linchpin of the organization. They're the ones that bring the vision. They're the ones that bring the energy. They're the ones that, that everybody
solve
else,
all the issues, right?
Yeah, everybody else
we don't know what to do.
Everybody else can gather behind.
Yeah.
But I've seen that over and over again with both corporate and high level organizational leaders, that very, very often they're nonlinear thinkers.
Yeah.
Just by nature.
Also because they're visual thinkers. That helps in leadership, because just thinking about it creates an image, and it's so much easier. And I always thought everybody was a visual thinker. Apparently it's not.
Yeah.
And that's weird. Yeah.
I'm very curious. Do you find, what level of loneliness would you say is common to folks who are in this group?
Very lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I get these very nice messages from time to time from people.
Yeah.
Saying, this is not to brag, it's not about me again, it's the organic growth of just a movement. But then sending me a message, thank you for finding my tribe. And it's true, if you're lonely, I was lonely.
Yeah.
I only had a few friends, and they didn't understand what the hell I was talking about. And they were judging on me. Why is he moving to China? Is he out of his mind? Why is he doing this? And then all of a sudden, I have this group of people where we connect so easily with and to.
Yeah.
And I have that in Zoom conversations, thanks to the pandemic. Thank you, pandemic, because that created the Octopus Movement as well. How global did we become by staying at home? How cool is that, right? I'm fascinated by something that I would love to do research on, is how is it possible that I have a feeling that my brain is making a biological connection with your brain when we're doing a Zoom?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my Apple laptop, and there is a internet connection in dark fiber optic cables going through the ocean with ones and zeros, and that's how we hear each other and see each other. But still, there's something going on
Yeah.
with our brains when we're doing this.
There is a physiological connection.
What the hell?
Isn't that great?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. I
It's
love
one of
that.
the things, I know that there's been a lot of research done in the whole idea of acausal and non-local phenomena. And I don't know if you've looked into any of that, but it's
No.
fascinating reading, and it is exactly what you're talking about. It's like there's some levels of connection that we have with each other that
Hmm.
aren't location dependent, and you know, they don't seem to have a cause and effect relationship. They exist outside of the realm of cause and effect. That just fascinates me. We could go on a whole other tangent with that. But the thing that
And that
I would,
solves, but that's, Frank, that solves the loneliness where
yeah,
a lot of these nonlinear thinkers that are going very fast and eager to learn and being a little bit of a curious misfits find it difficult to connect with people that are so stressed out about things that, whereas a nonlinear thinker, you're thinking, but why? Then
yeah,
you create a solution and you just continue. And looking at the pandemic, there was this group of people that were in complete panic because everything changed. They had to work at home and the kids were at home,
yeah,
and oh my God. And then there were a group of people like, oh, this is cool. And they created new things and they started making music together on Zoom and
yeah.
created new companies thanks to the pandemic. And nonlinear thinkers. It's
It's very,
awesome.
very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing our time, and not to get all linear on you, but I would like people to know about where they can find out more information about you and the Octopus Movement. Where will you send them?
Go to www.theoctopusmovement.org.
Okay.
You will see a page. It's black and white. It's the right half of the brain, which is the nonlinear part. It's the Octopus Movement. It's a nonprofit foundation. And on the left side, we're starting a for-profit linear company based on everything that's happening on the nonlinear side. And then you click on that and you go into the Octopus Movement. You can sign up, be a part of this, be a part of our global think tank where we are creating solutions for world problems, for global problems with
Yeah.
humanity and nature and whatnot. Be an octopus teacher, help us and teach at schools about nonlinear thinking. Be a nonlinear specialist where we combine all these people that are being specialists in a special way, not
Yeah.
just a linear accountant of doing the same accountancy sheets for 30 years, but people that have a lot of experience of many other things. You can find me and others there. You can book me
Okay.
for a conversation. I spent this year over 400 hours in conversations with people.
Yeah.
That's the mycelium. That's what I believe. And that's the only way where we can do this is when we have a connection and we have a chat with each other and see what we can do and how we can grow and
Yeah.
what it
Very
all
good.
means. Yeah.
So, folks, my guest today has been Perry Knoppert, and Perry is the founder and the lead nonlinear thinker of the Octopus Movement. More information at theoctopusmovement.org, and they're looking for people to join at every level. So please check it out. Perry, thank you so much for bringing your warmth, your energy, and your creativity to the show today.
Thank you, Franklin. And this was, wow, what a conversation. And I loved where I had this feeling of intimacy. Like, I don't know if I say that correctly, but it feels like we're together in this bubble
Yeah.
and it's very private and very serene and elegant. And I love that. So thank you, Franklin.
Well, thank you. That's lovely to hear. I appreciate it, Perry. Perry Knoppert, everyone. Thanks for listening to Your Own Best Company. We do appreciate it when you subscribe, review, and share this podcast with people you think will love it. Have a good one now. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Your Own Best Company. If you enjoyed the show, would you do me a favor and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast host? If you really love it, leave me a review or share it with your circles. If you feel like your career is reaching a dead end, or you're feeling a deep sense of dissatisfaction in your work right now, I help people discover their gifts and then find or create new opportunities that are the best fit for their talent, experience, and lifestyle. Email me at coaching@franklintaggart.com for more information. I also help people start, finish, and launch creative projects, and I offer an ongoing marketing mastermind for solopreneurs and freelancers. More information on these programs and services can be found at franklintaggart.com. Thanks again for spending this time with me.